minutes ago. I gave it to her to look at.
It is now 6:30, and I call the meeting of the Zoning Board of Adjustments to order. And with that, we stand for the invocation. Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this opportunity we have to be here this evening. We ask that you give advice to us and leadership to us, that we make the decisions that you would want us to bring forward. We thank you for all those who care enough to come to the meetings, and we praise you for the ones that serve on the boards and different offices of the city to help us succeed, be a successful town. We just praise you, Lord Jesus, in all these matters. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
You'd think after 8 years on the council I would learn. I have the biggest problem with that with Texas. Okay. First thing is yeah, we have that. Oh, you know how to speak? Okay. Public hearings. Number 4, conduct a public hearing regarding a request by the owner agent of the property situation in the city of Van Alstyne, county of Grayson, state of Texas, being described as Carter CE Edition, Block 1, Lot 1, 2, and 3, acres .64, located on the south side of East Jefferson Street, or FM 121, between 1159 East Jefferson Street and 1191 East Jefferson Street. Currently zoned single-family residential district 1, SF-1, for variances to the Van Alstyne Code of Ordinances, Section 46-31, left paren D, right paren, area setback, height and coverage regulations to reduce the minimum building size and to reduce front yard setback. Anybody have any statements on this issue? Okay, second call for anybody that have any information on this issue would like to speak on it. Third call, anyone like to have comments about it? Okay, items for consideration. Number 5, consider and take into action necessary regarding a request by the owner agent of the property situated in the city of Van Alstyne, county of Grayson, state of Texas, being described as Carter C.E. additional block 1, lot 1, 2, and 3, acres .64, located on the south side of East Jefferson Street, or FM 121, between 1159 East Jefferson Street and 1191 East Jefferson Street, and currently zoned single-family residential district -1, SF-1, for a variance to the Van Alstyne Code of Ordinances, Section 46-31, D, area setback, height, and coverage regulations to reduce the minimum building size and to reduce the front yard setback. Anybody on council have any questions or discussion? Do you have anything you want to say?
I don't think so. We're just trying to reduce the building size to 1,450.
Okay.
Comparable homes in that area, nice, small homes.
Okay. And the reason why you want to move it up is for,
We're not, it's not necessarily that we're going to move it up, just we haven't designed the house plans yet.
Okay.
And there's some valuable trees back there that we don't want to take down.
okay,
And there's also a nice creek back there that we don't want to get too close to.
Okay.
Structural standard.
okay, okay. Okay, with this issue, do I have a motion? Councilman Deska made a motion that we allow these variances. Is that correct? Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Brad, that's a second. Any discussion? Right on second. Okay, all those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. It's unanimous. Okay. With that, I adjourn the Planning and Zoning Board Adjustments meeting at 6:36. And just for your information, the reason I am conducting the meeting tonight, Larry Cooper, mayor, his wife had surgery on her foot, and so he was with her today, and he will be here sometime during the meeting and take over. I'm just doing it until he gets here. Okay. Call to order the council meeting of the city of Van Alstyne for May 9th, 2017 at 6:37. Citizens communication, I understand we have one from Jody Carr. Would you like to come forward? I don't guess we just, I guess.
Just stand right here?
I guess just
No
stay there.
pedestal.
Just that.
Right. Okay. Good evening, councilmen and as you know, I'm the director. My name is Jody Carr, the director of the EDC Corporation. And I'm here tonight on behalf of the EDC to give you official notification of our newest industry that's located in Van Alstyne. We'd like to welcome Core Enterprises. They are the new official owners of what we call the CAT building. So we have a new industry in town that the deal is done, we've already bought the building. And we would like to invite you guys to participate. We're going to give them a small welcome ceremony to welcome them to the new home and to, it's not quite a ribbon cutting yet because they've got to move in and they've got some things to do. But we want to let you guys meet their owners and start building a relationship with Van Alstyne. And we want them to know how much we appreciate them selecting our town to put their business in. So if you could pass these down, it's just a little invitation for y'all to join us. We want to have as many of you as can come to represent the city of Van Alstyne and show up support for them. So as you know, I've been giving you monthly updates as on the table. I won't be sitting there anymore, but I just wanted you to know that we did have some projects in the works, and this is one of those projects. So I'm pleased to be able to announce it to you tonight.
Thank you very much.
Did you guys have any questions?
Any questions?
Okay, great. Thank you. I hope you join us. All right.
Teddy, did you want to speak now or after, or during the process?
I have one I want to speak on.
Okay.
That's my kind of song. Takes me a while to get up there. Thank you. I want to speak on what we have in citizen communications. I assume everyone got an agenda for tonight. And under citizen communications, this is not for items that are listed on the agenda. However, if you want to speak on an item that's listed on the agenda, you look down here and it's consent agenda. I wanted to speak tonight on item 5, but you know you can't do that because it's on the consent agenda. This consent agenda is on what is as the right is done by staff, and they decide what's on the consent agenda, and it's all passed with one vote. You cannot have the public input on items that are listed in this, and it can only be done with a request of any one member of the city council, not a resident of this town. And they are the only ones who can have it removed and placed where there can be discussion about it. As a citizen, I think that we should all have the right to be heard. And if there is something on the agenda that we need to speak on, and it is on a consent agenda, I really think we need to review the process in what we are doing so that people can speak up about the things on the consent agenda. And,
Teddy,
yes?
I think would it be possible for you to just ask any, when you come in, you could ask one of the councilmen to please take out, I don't think anybody would have any problem with that.
But
Yeah.
you don't know, but that's not what it says here. So,
But I mean, if an item is on the consent agenda, if you request one of the councilmen to,
well, then I'm requesting to speak on item 5.
okay, then one of us will make a request to have that moved to the
Thank you
regular
very
agenda.
much,
You're welcome.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. Okay, consent agenda. No, excuse me, I'm sorry. Public hearings. Conduct a public hearing regarding a request by the owner agent to replat property situated in the city of Van Alstyne, Grayson County, Texas, being described as Carter CE Edition, Block 1, Lot 123, acres .64, located on the south side of East Jefferson Street, or FM 121, between 1159 East Jefferson Street and 1191 East Jefferson Street, and currently zoned single-family residential, District 1, SF-1. Okay, does anybody want to discuss that? Call number 1. Anybody want to discuss it? Call number 2. Anybody want to discuss it? Call number 3. With that, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Items listed in the consent agenda allow the council to approve all items together without discussion or individual motions. Items may be removed from the consent agenda on the request of any one member of the council. Removed items will be discussed and action taken immediately after the consent agenda. Okay, I'm going to read the items off of there. Well, I'll read, first of all, I think I'll request, does anybody have anything they'd like to have removed from the consent agenda? Number 5, please, correction. Okay, anyone else? Okay, I'll start reading it. Number 4, consider and take any action necessary regarding minutes from the April 11th, 2017 Zoning Board of Adjustments meeting, April 11th, 2017 regular meeting, and the April 25th, 2017 special call meeting. Number 6, consider and take any action necessary regarding authorizing advertisement for the bids for the Dallas Street Water and Sewer Line project from Houston Street to Shreveport Street. Number 7, consider and take any action. Oh, it's on ready. I missed one. Okay. So we have 2 items, number 4 and number 6. Do I have any discussion on the, well, no discussion. Do I have a request on those items? Councilman Jessica has made the motion to approve it. Anybody second? Second by Councilman Russell. I did that. I have a couple. And all those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Unanimous decision. Now, go to number 5. Will be next. Consider and take any action necessary regarding authorizing the mayor to sign a resolution to certify local funding and support of the Van Alstyne Bike and Pedestrian Trail Phase 2. Let me ask for any discussion. Council?
This is on number 6. So it is my understanding that this is to apply for the funds. If we were to be awarded the funds, then that's not something necessarily required to use. Is that correct? So
Right.
this is just kind of getting us in the pot.
Keep your name on the list.
What fiscal year would this project affect?
Probably 18. So we set aside funds and council's request, EDC and CDC set aside light funds as well.
Okay. Mayor?
Thank you, and thank you, Councilman Justin. This bike trail was approved by the council years ago, three-way split. EDC, which is supposed to be for manufacturing and commercial. The EDC, the CDC, and the city, and they do they split this three ways for a 20% split. The city portion is $120,000, $120,950. That's their capitalized items. And this is only part, there's a phase coming up, and we redo this and redo it. And it's not even something that is solid, that you even know where it's going to be, because there are several maps out that show different ways this bike trail is going to be. Part of this is taken from the Park and Recreation budget, for which I am the chairman. Without this budget, our budget is $81,555.03. That budget consists of one employee, 8 items out of the 15 items to cover that employee and his benefits. And the rest of it is maintenance, repair, insurance, electricity, and machinery, but nothing for park improvements. Our parks are supported by the EDC, CDC, VASA grants, and volunteer labor. The money we are spending on bike trail would go a long way to improve our parks, but there is nothing that is put in by the city in the Parks Board toward the purchase of land to expand our present parks, to fix up the North Park that we're waiting on volunteers to fix up. None of that is in there. A bike trail is nice. Nobody says it's not. And someday I think we need one, but I do question the fact that we are not taking financial care of what we already have. Families that move here, they expect good parks. And we have several. And we need to invest in them today, not down the road. Our park should be first before a bike trail. The city does little to provide for the youth as it is. None of these agreements are made in stone, and we do need to provide good parks for our young people. And this money would go a long way if we chose to. Thank you very much.
Anybody else have anything to say?
This is part of a grant program.
Right.
But the grant has not been granted. We're just putting the money aside now. Isn't that
We're
correct?
just applying for the money to
But
be
it
put.
hasn't been done.
No, they haven't, the state hasn't given out that money yet, and won't for a while. But if you don't put your name on the list now, then you won't be considered when it is put out. The only thing you're getting is, you're getting an opportunity to, at that point in time, decide that you want to follow through with it. It doesn't mean that you have to go, it doesn't mean you have to do it, it just means that now the money is available, and they're going to pay, I believe, 80%. They pay 80% of the cost. If we don't apply for it, and then we decide we want to build it 5 years from now, we get to pay the other 80%.
And
Because
if
the
we
plan
decide
is
we
no
don't want
less.
to apply for it after it's awarded,
What?
what if we decide we don't want it?
Then all you do is just say you don't want it. If the council at that point in time decides they don't want it, then the thing ends, nobody's out any money, it didn't cost anybody, anything, it's over with.
Then we
But-
don't
but-
have all this money.
Well, you're saying that like the park board, they spent, I don't know, $45,000 on a new playground and covers for the playgrounds and that kind of stuff. Then they got CDC to come along and pay $20,000 to have it all put together because the volunteers said they couldn't do it. So, it's not like the city and CDC and EDC are not presently I don't know about EDC. CDC are not presently supporting the sports departments and the parks department, because they are. And so is the city by maintaining those things and getting them repaired and stuff like that. So it's a continuous thing that they've been working on So it's not like they're just left out there and, you know, that nobody's helping anybody. I mean, I know that the Parks Department has always had a big, long list of these 1,000 things we'd like to have, and I understand it. They're trying to do things for the kids. So I understand them doing it, but at the same time, you know, the city has to work with what is best for the total city. That's still a part of the parks. The concept of bicycle riding and using it as a way to get around town is still a parks idea. I mean, it's still an exercise thing. So, okay. Do I have a motion on number?
Rick, let me add one more thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
One of the reasons that this grant was appealing to council was Highway 5 is a very busy thoroughfare. And we have, in our growing town, we have a lot of kids. And y'all know the elementary schools at this end, and we have middle school, then we have high school. We have a lot of kids that go down this thoroughfare. There's a lot that walk. The thing that was appealing was that there was being able to get 80% of it paid for, allow us to have this for the kids to get them off the roadways and be able to ride their bikes to and from school. And with us growing, and Highway 5 is probably not going to get, you know, expanded sooner than possibly this hike and bike trail. So that's what made this so appealing. I'm very much in favor of exactly what you're saying, Teddy Ann, about working towards more towards our parks, but the safety of the children, that really kind of spurred, I know it spurred my interest on being able to get 80% of that paid for.
But in order to get that money, we have to put part of this trail down Highway 5.
That's right. It's part of it goes down, and that's one of the reasons that it was so appealing.
Anybody else? Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
Okay, do I have a motion? And do I have a second? I'll second it. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed? Same sign. 3 to 1? No, you put that. Okay. 3 to 1. Robert Jaska against it. Number 7. No. First, non-consent agenda. Consider and take any action necessary regarding the 2015-2016 fiscal year audit presented by Susan LaFollette of LaFollette and Abbott LLC. And the stage over to you.
Okay. I do have a PowerPoint that I'll kind of go by, and once again, I'm ready.
Now speak a little louder so they can hear you if you don't mind.
Okay, I'll try. I have a PowerPoint presentation, and Jennifer's going to help me. Thank you. You can go to the next slide. My agenda tonight will be talking about the objectives and scope of our audit, my financial report, financial highlights, overview of the audit results, our recommendations, the required governance communication letter, and some closing remarks. The objectives, of course, were to conduct an audit based on government auditing standards and to plan and perform an audit so that we can find assurance that there's not going to be material mistakes. It's a full scope audit. We did do the governmental activities, the business type activities, which is the water fund, and the component units, EDC, CDC, and each major fund. You have a financial report that is bound, and it has a table of contents, and the items that are in there are independent auditor's report, management discussion and analysis, 2 pages of government-wide financial statements, the fund financial statements, notes and disclosures, required supplemental information, and an independent auditor's report on internal controls and compliance. let's start with the financial highlights of the government-wide statement. Those two statements are done on a full accrual basis. At the end of the year, the city had a net position of $7,766,719. And overall, that means an increase this year of $1,207,934, or 16%. The unrestricted net position of the city at the end of the year was $828,602, and that is also an increase of $47,889 as compared to last year. This is also geared to for our GASB Standard 68, which is accounting for pensions. TMRS has estimated that the city's pension liability is $700,375, and that is an increase from last year of $176,579. Also, on one of the supplementary schedules, the changes in net pension liability, page 44, shows that the city's pension liability is 82% funded. The fund financials, we'll talk about those next. The general fund has unassigned fund balances of $979,764. That is an increase from last year of $277,896. These are the funds that the city can use to meet the city's ongoing obligations, and it represents 3.7 months reserve at the end of the year. 3 to 6 months is optimal, and you're in that zone, so that's really, these are positive results. I added one item. The city had 1.82 months of reserves at fiscal year 13. So the budgeting and various other things that have been done has made a difference, and it is improvement there. And overall, the general fund had an increase of $250,422 in fund balance, and so that is basically showing an improvement over last year. Water and sewer fund unrestricted net position. It's a negative balance of $165,668, and you might ask, how could that be? Well, the other portion is in investment in capital and restricted funds in GTUA. So the portion that's left over for unrestricted monies is a negative number. The good news is that negative number got smaller this year by $131,611. These funds could be used to meet the ongoing obligations, but there's no reserves. 3 to 6 month reserve is optimal. There's never an absolute number in the water fund, but the 3 to 6 month would be a good goal for the city, and the budgeting appears to be working in that direction. The net position did increase by $328,886, or 7% this year, so that's another positive result. And it probably happened due to the rate increases. The discretely presented component units, we do talk about those, we do audit those because they're basically by law, they were set up for the benefit of the city and the citizens, so they're audited as part of the city and included in this report. The net position at the end of the year for EDC was $675,234. That was an increase of $79,503. CDC also had positive results of $267,835 for its net position, and that was a slight increase of about $4,000. Our report, our independent auditor's report, is unmodified, which means it's a clean report, and there's nothing there that's not just standard language. Our last report in the last few pages of the bound report is our independent auditor's report on internal control over financial reporting and on compliance and other matters based on an audit of financial statement performed in accordance with government auditing standards. There is a material weakness there, and it has to do with accounts payable. The city did not reconcile the accounts payable detailed through the module to the general ledger, and as a result, accounts payable and various expenses were overstated by $36,114 in the general fund and $41,000 in the water sewer fund. I put the definition of the material weakness in here so that I can talk about it and explain it. A material weakness is a deficiency in internal controls such that there is a reasonable possibility that a material misstatement of the city's financial statements will not be prevented or detected and corrected on a timely basis. So it's not as bad as it sounds. If the reconciliation had been done, most assuredly the city would have found this and detected it, corrected it before we got there. It's just a procedure that needs to be done, so if this is implemented, it will be taken care of, and this material weakness will go away. The second thing that we found, we're considering that a significant deficiency. That has to do with cash reconciliations. The city has numerous cash accounts, and they're all reconciled manually, and this manual process, along with perhaps inadequate review, resulted in errors to cash. Cash was overstated by $38,939 in debt service fund and understated by $13 in the general fund. A significant deficiency is a deficiency in internal control. It's less severe than material weakness, but it's important enough to merit attention to those charged with governance. This is just highlighting the fact that the city needs to implement the system that goes with their general ledger system. There's an automatic reconciliation, and if that was done and reviewed, these things would have been protected and would be resolved. So it's not a matter of any missing cash or anything wrong like that. It's just human error has occurred, and the internal controls need to be strengthened so that these human errors that happen to everyone, everyone's going to do that. So if these reconciliation processes are put into place, both of these things will go away. And that's all it is. We just need to strengthen our internal controls here. Recommendations are not findings. They're just in the loose letter that I put in there called management letter. There's 5 things that you can strengthen your internal controls or processes, and one of them is to continue to budget the water and sewer fund so that you can get that negative number taken care of. Capitalize all government fixed assets greater than $5,000 and utilize that capital outlay account for those purchases and only for those purchases. Reconcile ambulance revenue for the general ledger to cash receipts for the third-party billing. Reconcile court revenue for the general ledger to the court receipts detail for the court system. It is a separate system. It does not interface with the general ledger system, so that reconciliation is crucial. And also work closer with the city consultant to refine year-end closing procedures. We had about 18 adjustments. Those are listed in that second letter, and I would like to see that number at 10 or under. So I think you have a very high quality consultant, Eddie Peacock CPA, and maybe just work more closely with him to get some of these things taken care of before you know it. There's one comment for CDC, just monitor the cash balances and the risk of uninsured cash. And EDC, continue to refine the closing process. We did have to correct the opening balance, and that was mainly just because the audit adjustments were not posted correctly, so that's something that needs to be looked at. The second letter that you have in your packet is the required government communication letter. Things that are in that include your sensitive estimates, allowance for, and those are the allowance for uncollectible court fines and ambulance services. Your significant disclosures here at the city are long-term debt. We didn't have any difficulties, and there are some corrected and uncorrected misstatements. All of the adjustments that we recommended, the city did accept and post, and those are at Schedule A. There are 3 immaterial uncorrected adjustments we noticed, and those are listed at Schedule E in the FYI. Disagreement with management, none. I really want to thank Frank Baker, City Manager, and Jennifer Buell, also as well as the EDC and CDC staff, Kenita Larkins and Donnie Izzy. And I think I forgot to put Joey's name up there, but we also work with you. Thank you. Everyone was very helpful. I did want to put a shout out to Jennifer. She has really worked hard over the past few years to not only correct things at the city, but learn a lot, work with Eddie, figure out the audit process, and has made a lot of improvements. So even though there was findings, she's done some really great work, and she's a resource to the city, I think. So with that, questions or comments?
Number 8. No. Oh, we have to accept it. Okay, I have a motion to accept the item. I have a motion from Mr. Jasper.
Second.
I have a second. Mr. Moore, all those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same side, unanimous. Let's see, number 8. Consider and take any action necessary regarding a request by the owner agent of the replat property situated in the city of Van Alstyne, Grayson County, Texas, being described as Carter CE Edition, Block 1, Lot 1, 2, and 3, acres .64, located on the south side of East Jefferson Street, or FM 121, between 1159 East Jefferson Street and 1191 East Jefferson Street, is currently zoned single-family residential district. Have any discussion on that? Councilman? Did you? I thought that was, that said 9 and 15. Okay, that's not 9, okay. Do I have a motion? Okay, motion made by Mr. Clark, seconded by Jaska. All those in favor, by hand? Unanimous? Okay, number 9. Hear a presentation by First Southwest Company regarding funding, acquisition, and construction of municipal facilities.
Hi, my name is Jim Savonis. I work for the First Southwest Company. I've been the city's financial advisor for a number of years. Over the past few months, I've been working with the
Can you
city.
speak a little louder, please?
I will. Over the last few years, last few months, I've been working with the city manager and his team to come up with a plan to finance some acquisition of land and municipal facilities without raising the taxes before the city. So we put a presentation together, and the presentation has a lot of background about where we are. I think just as we individually, the city itself has to look at what its existing debt is and its existing obligations are currently, what its credit rating is, what interest rates are, before it looks at what it can fund. And then we've got 2 scenarios to move forward to fund the land acquisition and to build some municipal facilities. One is a one-phase program that would allow you to fund something in 2017, and the second is a 2-phase program. I'd ask you to go to the next page. This is a summary of what we're going to talk about. First of all, the city's in excellent financial condition, has very little debt outstanding. Interest rates are historically near their low levels and not as low as they have been, but they're, again, below 85% of what interest rates have been in the last 20 years. What we've put together is 2 scenarios. One would be going forward at the end of this year and funding $2,975,000 to fund land acquisition and to build the first in a number of phases of municipal facilities. It would be issued through certificates of obligation that involve the city council passing a notice, publishing the notice in the paper that they're going to fund this, and then passing ordinance to go forward and do that. This process would have no increase in the city's tax rate. The city's current debt service component of the tax rate is 13.7 cents, and it would actually stay the same. The second scenario is a 2-phase scenario, and this involves the city going forward again in late spring with a tax note phase. The tax note phase is just a 7-year note. That note would be just to fund land acquisition. And then later, they would call a bond election. In November, you'd have the bond election. The bond election passed. In January, we would fund the construction of municipal facilities. The unique aspect of this is is one is going forward at one time and managing your tax rate, locking in current interest rates. The second is a two-phase program, just getting the land now and voting and building facilities in the future. The unique thing about that is that some of the concerns that we have are we're in a rising interest rate environment, and construction costs are rising dramatically because of our growth in Texas. You go forward, and I'm going to have you go forward two slides. This is the city has very little debt outstanding. This is actually all the debt they have outstanding as of today. They have $2.3 million of tax-supported debt and $1.5 million of water and sewer. When you look at the cities compared to its peer cities, we're at the very low range of the amount of debt we have. And it's reflective, you'll see in your amortization, we don't have a lot of prolonged debt amortization. We haven't funded a lot of capital in quite some time. We just got paying at the tail end of some bonds that were funded years ago. Again, it's a consideration just to take to say why you're creditworthy. If we go to the next page, this is actually the debt that we have outstanding. This shows you the amortization that we have, and this is each series that we have. We have 2006 water and sewer bonds, the 2011 water and sewer bonds, and we have the 2011A refunding bonds, and then we'd actually subtract our self-supported bonds. And you can see that the unique thing about our tax-supported debt is that we only have 7 years after this fiscal year to pay our debt service. That gives us a unique opportunity to look at our existing debt and say, what can we fund? And because we have so little debt outstanding, we have pretty good funding capacity. If we continue to the next page, this gives you a feel for what your tax rate has been over the last 5 years. And as you can see, you've actually decreased your overall tax rate from 52 cents to, from 74 cents to 61 cents. That's a tremendous accomplishment because of good management by the council and good management by your staff and by growth of the city. And what we wanted to show is that we've had a pretty consistent INS tax rate the last few years, but again, it's significantly down. In 2012, we had 22 cents towards our debt service. We're at 13.78 cents this fiscal year. That's actually our current tax rate. So the goal that city manager said was, how much can we fund without it going up in our INS tax rate? If you move forward, and this is kind of a graph of our existing debt service and our INS tax rate. As you can see, we only have 7 years after this year to pay debt service, and that debt service actually is declining. That gives us capacity. So we're in a pretty good position going forward. The next page talks about our credit rating, and you'll be pleased to know the city has an A2 medium investment grade rating. That's an excellent rating for a city this size. It means that the city can borrow very cost effectively in today's market and has really excellent access to the capital markets. In fact, this is probably the strongest financial condition. Looking at last year's audit, this year's budget, and where the budget looks like it's going to end up, it's been the strongest fiscal year that the city's had. We move forward. This gives you a look at interest rates. This is the last 20 years of interest rates graphed over time. We're currently, if we were looking at a 20-year GO bond, the interest rate would be about 3.71%. It's off the historical low of 2.8, but I will tell you that the 2.8% that we hit in late 2016 was the lowest interest rates have been since World War II, since we tracked municipal bond interest rates. And more importantly, the 3.7, it's below 85% of the last 20 years of interest rates. So it's a pretty low rate. On the other hand, we're in a rising rate environment. The Federal Reserve has moved up interest rates 25 basis points already this year. The economists predict high probability that they'll increase interest rates in the next meeting. There'll be another interest rate increase. That's just background information. As I told city manager, as I tell my clients, we don't fund things because interest rates are low, just like we as individuals don't buy things because interest rates are low. You fund things when you need them, but you just consider interest rates at that time. So give a background overall for the city, city's budget and its balance sheet looks like what you expect. It hasn't spent a lot of money on debt, on roads or municipal facilities. On the other hand, because of that, it's got some capacity going forward without expecting significant growth. Interest rates are low, we have good credit quality. That adds up to how we look at the capacity. If you move forward here, this is the one-phase program. Cities have the ability to issue certificates of obligation, and a one-phase program would indicate that we would issue in August. The city would have its funds in September. It would actually build a structure of debt, so it would take into place in the next fiscal year. But the way it would be structured would be that there would be no increase in the tax rate based on current interest rates and our current credit quality. So what we would do here is that if the city wanted to, a very conservative 21-year bond issue, 3.5% interest rate, which is probably buffered by about 25 basis points, we could go out and without a tax rate increase, we would fund just under $3 million. And that $3 million put in a project fund. Initially, it would be to purchase land. Secondly, it would be used to build municipal facilities for the city. If you go to the next slide, it's actually a chart. And as you can see, two things I want to point out on this chart is not only do we not go up in the tax rate, as you can see that our tax rate stays at 13.73%, but it's not much longer than our current debt. Our tax rate drops and we'll have a significant capacity. So one thing I want to point out to you is that this is not totally loading up the city with debt. This gives you capacity in the future to fund future programs. As you can see, our debt drops from about $400,000 to 200 and just under 200,000, with the anticipation that in the future you'll need capital, and in the future when you fund capital, nobody will want a tax rate increase. So we keep the current tax rate and we maintain ability to fund capital in the future. This process will allow you to fund the project soon. If you go to the next page, this is the process that you would go forward with. If the council wanted to go forward with this program, the first step would be they would have the city attorney draft a notice of intent resolution. That resolution would indicate that the city was going to issue $2,975,000 of certificates of obligation. It would issue those on August 8th. It would pay for those with ad valorem taxes, and it would use those to fund land acquisition and build facilities. They would put that in the paper. Our suggestion would be prior to funding it, the city has a contract to purchase the land, so we know what that value is. And then a unique thing happens. In the state of Texas, on July 25th is the day that all taxable assessed values are certified. That's the date that the actual taxable assessed value the city of Van Alstyne will have, and they know if they can set their budget, they'll get that. Every municipality gets the same day. I remember that, that's my birthday, so it's kind of bittersweet that day, you know? So, but you get your value, then we sit down with the city manager and say, what's our value look like? You know, was our original presentation accurate? We may revise it accordingly, you know, and if things look dire, we might come back to council and say, maybe we'll have to downsize this program. Because our notice of intent is a not to exceed number. So what will happen is when we get that value, we go back and we rerun the numbers and make sure the plan works based on our actual tax value that we're going to have forward. Then what would happen would be a process that as it goes forward with its budget, it would improve. The city council would say, yes, we want to move forward and build that, buy the land, build a municipal facility. We approve our budget for that. You approve your tax rate anticipating the issuance of the certificates of obligation, and then you actually, since you've got your budget and your tax rate approved, we issue the certificates of obligation, and one night, a very seamless process that many municipalities we work with throughout the state go forward with. In the state of Texas, we're fortunate. The Attorney General of Texas reviews and approves all issuance by municipalities. It takes 15 working days from us receiving the completed documents to submit to them. He actually is a great process because to make sure that all the notices and all the processes were followed, and once he approves it, it's irrevocable. That's why we don't see cities in Texas default, like you see around the countries that are problems. He makes sure that we do everything appropriately. Then what would happen would be that the transaction would close in September. The city would have its funds, debt would be in place, the tax collector has the debt in place, so it levies the value, the tax rate. The tax rate's not going to go up, but it will remain the same as we had. So this is a process if you want to move forward. Now, lock in interest rates, have the ability to purchase your land in a seamless one process going forward. The second process we're going to talk about is a two-step process. And this two-step process might be a little bit more comprehensive. I actually just set this up to kind of match up on phase one. But if you decide to go on a two-step process, I haven't even mentioned this as city manager yet, I think we have to really think more visionary on what we look like when we do this. And what I want to say is that step number one would be a tax note. So you would get a contract to purchase a piece of property. Just by ordinance, it can issue a tax note to fund the acquisition. That ordinance allows the council to issue debt as long as it can amortize it in 7 years. That's a short-term financing. And then what would happen would be that later in the late summer, city council would call a bond election. And that bond election would be on the November ballot. And at that time, the citizens would vote for municipal facilities. While I set this up to kind of match up a one-phase program, this is going to be a multi-phase program. The goal would be to continue to have the opportunity to build facilities as the city grows without increasing the tax rate. So if we were to go about this scenario, the one thing I would suggest, Frank, community staff to present to the council would be a multi-phase program. Just as you see school districts and other entities that vote bonds, you really want to kind of say, what's our next 3 phases? We'll commit not to raise our rates, and we'll just fund them as we go forward. But I just showed what would take place if we did a one scenario. So in this case, again, we'd set up the tax notes where there'd be no tax rate increase. We'd actually structure it where if the bonds were voted, that the city could actually issue the general obligation bonds and would have no tax impact going forward. Our current plan, and based on some estimates of typical property that the city is looking at, would be about $340,000 in the tax notes. That leave capacity of about $2,110,000 specifically for the buildings. On the next page, it shows very similar. As you can see, it's a very similar debt burden, only we've done it in 2 phases versus 1. We stay at the 13.7 cents for a few years, and then we decline significantly, which would give the city capacity to fund things in the future. Simply a 2-phase process versus 1. On the next page is actually kind of a time frame to go forward. Step 1, and again, if the proposal was to go forward with a 2-step program, the city council would direct the city manager to come up with a contract, identify the land, negotiate an acquisition contract for their approval. The city would enter into a contract for the land acquisition pending funding. Again, July 25th, we have the time frame where we know our certified value. We readjust our numbers if needed, and then same day on August 8th, the city would go forward and budget funding of the acquisition of the land. They'd actually approve their tax rate, and they'd issue the tax notes. The difference being, this would just be for $300,000 or so, and be paid over 7 years. They would, again, the Attorney General reviews and approves it, they'd purchase the land. And then, as the summer went on, they would develop a bond program, a multi-phase program that would fund municipal facilities. They present that bond, they call a bond election. That bond election would be in November. And if you go to the next page, let's see, you have November election. In Texas, we have a 30-day contest period. Because that ends up between like Thanksgiving and the end of the year, Usually we try to steer away unless it's emergency to fund it. We really come forward at the beginning of January, do a bond program to fund phase one of your program. And at phase one, again, would be timed so there would be no tax rate increase on the facilities that could take place. Then future phases might be funded as growth took place, and you wouldn't fund could fund some more facilities. Let's see the next page. So in summary, I met with the city manager a number of months ago and his staff, and he said, we have a need for facilities. We've had some architectural and need facilities studies done for us. It's total almost $22 million. As a general financial advisor for the city, I knew that's a tough task. So I asked him what were his constraints, and the constraints were no tax rate increase for our debt service. So we've gone back, we've worked with him on the budget and expectations. And in general, based on the current city's financial condition, we have the capacity for $2.9 million of debt. At that, two ways to do it. One is to move forward and fund the debt now, lock in rates, move forward with your project. The other is a two-phase program where you move forward for the land acquisition, just buy a tax note, develop a bond program. Probably that bond program would be a multi-phase bond program. Phase one would be no tax rate funding in 2018. And then the remaining bonds would only be funded when the facilities were needed, and they could be funded without a tax rate increase. With that concludes my presentation. Council, Mayor, any questions or questions from the citizens?
You, and correct me if I'm wrong, you referenced that we had, what, $3 to $3.5 million in debt obligations. Our financial statement shows we have almost $12 million.
I think that if there's debt obligations, there's contract debt obligations you have to GTUA. Those are GTUA contracts. They're actually not debt obligations. You actually represent as debt, but truly they're paying for your operational fees of your water and sewer fund. So those aren't items that we levy taxes for. Those are items that are built into the citizens' utility rates. They're actually contract revenues that you would actually pledge your revenues of the utility systems and potentially any payable funds. So again, I separate those. Those are a contract with upper trinity that's built into the utility rates. These are actually the debts that we pay, you levy your tax for.
Well, they also factor into the fact that we only have $2.9 million bonding capacity right now. Correct.
No, actually, the constraint on value, and I ask you to go back to maybe you go to page 11. And this is a really good question to really focus in what's the city's constraints. 11. Yes, thank you. Well, so anyways, when you look at this, our goal, is not to increase the city's tax rate. So the first thing we looked at is, and how is your tax rate derived? You take your taxable assessed value, you look at the amount of debt you have, and you have an INS tax rate. So we sat down with the city manager, and we start saying, what is your overall scenario for growth? The last 5 years, the city has grown at a compound rate of over double digit. And what's expected to take place is that the city's preliminary taxable assessed value is going to come in at $267 million. So what our constraint is $267 million times 13.78 cents. And we have one more year of growth that we have in place, and then we're level going forward. So our real constraint in your debt is your value times 13 cents provide cash flow for your debt. And the unique thing about this, and hope you can see this, is that, you know, it's our value times our tax rate gives us how much we can fund. Right here is where we're constrained right now. As you can see, we have a lot of capacity in the end, but we don't have a lot of debt right now, and we have to kind of work with the existing debt. So the real constraints are the 13.7 cents. You know, and when people ask me what their debt capacity is, state of Texas says a city can levy a $1.50 tax rate. If you were look at investors, because you pledge your IS tax, you can fund $10, $15 million. But people, to me, what their real debt capacity is what they're willing to pay. According to your city manager, the city does not want a tax increase. So what we're willing to pay is our current taxes. So our current taxes times our current value is what we're willing to pay. It gives us our debt capacity. If that makes sense. The other debt that you talked about, and some of the other water sewer debt, we do pay that, and we pay that through utility bills, because that's what it's funded. So this would be our debt capacity at this time. If that makes sense.
Okay, well, I was just looking at the overall scenario. We're talking about growth and stuff like that. We want to keep the tax rate level, I understand that. But I just got my tax statement from the county, and my property taxes are going up. Property value is going up 12 to 15%, unless I can knock that down. So even if we don't have, if we have a level tax rate, people's tax bills are going to go up 12 to 15%. Okay? Adding this on to it is going to also increase the burden on the taxpayer. So, you know, that's what my concern is. Also, if we've got a 2.9 million capacity, which I consider to be liquidity, in case we have some kind of catastrophic event, if we're going to use that all up for this project, we're not going to have anything to fall back on.
And one thing that every good financial advisor and my bright people that help work with me are, this is a conservative test. Very conservative numbers are used here, conservative interest rates. So if you fund this program, a reasonable disaster can be funded. Another $3 million could it be? $500,000 we can squeeze in there. The goal is always, as financial advice for all our clients, is to be conservative and outperform when we do something, give you the flexibility to go forward. But you're right. I mean, when you look at this, for the short term, and again, when I look at this, I look at 2018-19 growing at 2.9% per year. That's what we're capacity using. If we will grow and we will continue to grow, and in fact, probably in the future, based on my understanding of your city, your growth will accelerate as more sales tax using entities move in here to really help your budget. But it's a consideration. And again, my goal and my direction was, if we want to build some facilities, what's our capacity to do that? Conservatively, give us capacity for other things without raising our taxes.
Anything? Thank you very much. Now, you want to speak on the matter? Okay.
You would like to know this is my last time to speak as a citizen. I wanted to speak on this subject because I wanted to caution the council. I walked in to do some consideration when they're considering this. I know that this is about acquisition and construction, and thank you for your presentation, it was excellent. But when you're going for all of this for our municipal facilities, I want to remind you that we do have a lot of arrows together here. There is a lot that is just west of the fire department. There is an old lumber yard that is connected to the Department of Public Works. We could have a city hall for a lot less than the facilities we're talking about, and the acquisition of land. And when you talk about the acquisition of land, the only thing that I have seen is this. It is a map of the municipal that is between Kelly Lane and Dallas Street. And I want to ask you, I want you to consider, do not move our municipal services out of downtown Alstyne. We have a lot of people who have businesses in this town, and they're downtown, and the last thing we need is for the city to move out of downtown. When we have them here, we want people to move here. There are several reasons for that, but we want the city to show support for these businesses. We have those two lots that you can consider, which would make the price a lot less than what we're talking about this. And we're not in competition with another town to build a municipal facility, number one. Number two, I looked at this property, and I do want to bring to your attention, I believe that the property that the city, that McManus has drawn up, that is between Dallas Street and Kelly Lane, part of that is property that belongs to a local church here in town, for which we have a majority of our members from the Baptist church, one of which is a deacon. This has the basis of an extreme conflict of interest if this land is purchased. Because if you vote on it and you are a member of an entity that you're purchasing land from them, I believe that to be a conflict of interest, number one. Number two, please consider keeping the city downtown, Alstyne. People work so hard at their businesses in this town. We have the best downtown between McKinney and Sherman, and nobody will question that or argue with it. Why would we move our city facilities away? And we can purchase land to keep all of our facilities in the central business district instead of deserting the town with the city facilities. So I'm asking you to please consider keeping and supporting downtown Alstyne in the future when you are looking at all of these projects that are coming up before you. Thank you.
I'll turn it over to you.
Just for your information, I'm a member of the Baptist Church, and we have bought land out on Cartwright Road to actually, and that's where they plan on building. So they're not gonna. It wouldn't
But they
affect
still
them.
own this land.
Huh? They own the land.
That we're
but
talking about building this municipal facility on.
They own the land, but for years they've been trying to sell it. They just don't have a for sale sign up there.
Right.
But for years they've been trying to. So I don't think it would make anybody mad if the city bought it from them. So that wouldn't affect that. As far as the other question, keeping it downtown, the group that was helping us develop what plans we could make, one of their plans was to keep it downtown and build it down here. It was just a very difficult process to try to get, number one, to build downtown at the same time as you're keeping, if you need this land to build a fire station and a police department, and you've already got a fire station and police department there, it makes it a little bit hard to, you can't move them into trailers out there and wait until it all occurs. So, you almost have to go to a, new property to be able to build anything like that. Okay. Now, I don't think there was any motion or anything on this. Just go on to the next item. You want to move over here, Larry? You want to be over here?
All right. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
Carry on.
No, you go ahead.
All right, well, let's see. Well, the next thing on the agenda then,
Number
no, we're not, well, now, is number 10 being considered anymore? Because I think that's I don't think we have an issue there anymore. Is that, am I not correct? Yes, I was. Okay, so, yeah, number 10, there's no issue there, and so we don't need to bring that before the council. I'll be glad to answer questions.
What was the issue?
Well, let's see now. Are we discussing?
Number 2?
Yeah, and I'm wondering if this is something that's, are we talking about personnel issues during our executive session?
once you get to it.
Yes. All right. Well, okay, the person, the individual that was the subject of this matter, the BDC has given a special consideration to, and so they are not going to forward it to the council any recommendations on as to releasing this person from their job. And special considerations, I don't know that that's the language that's in the statute, but it's something similar to that. And so, any more questions about that? It's just something that doesn't need to be brought to the council. It's already taken care of. And so, we can move on to departmental reports.
Thank you, Mayor. Jennifer?
The Administration Department for the month of April answered 1,266 calls in 19 operating days, responded to 14 requests for public records, and 3 requests for public records submitted via the website, and responded to 10 general questions or comments submitted via the website, accepted 1 replat request and 1 variance request. We issued 2 commercial miscellaneous permits, accepted 2 certificate of occupancy permit applications, 15 miscellaneous residential permits, and 14 residential new construction permits for a total of 33 permits. We accepted and processed 22 new utility account applications, 8 utility account disconnections, 2 leak adjustments, and 4 payment extensions. We processed 45 purchase orders and issued 67 general fund checks, 43 water fund checks, 1 Court Technology Fund check, 1 S&N Enterprises Fund check, 1 Insurance Trust Fund check, and 1 Debt Service Fund check. We also issued 12 checks on behalf of the Economic Development Corporation. The Planning and Zoning Commission will not meet next Wednesday at the regular day 5 date, which is May 17th, and City Hall will be closed in observance of Memorial Day on Monday, May 29th.
Thank you, City Clerk. Chief Lawrence?
Mayor, Council, the police department had 73 hours of training. We had 56 incident reports, 1,181 calls for service. Communication had 911 calls, 119. Calls for service was 1,303. Training hours for communication was 12 hours. They answered non-emergency line 3,110 times. Records request was 22. Municipal court had closure of 299 cases.
Lieutenant Powell?
Mayor, Council, we had 63 EMS, emergency EMS runs, 32 non-emergency transfers, and 3 non-particles.
Thank you, Lieutenant. Director White?
City Council, I'm the mayor. Public Works is right now, we're still trying to get well 5 running. If everything goes back in place, we should have a feedback on Friday. Should be back on well water. The plant, we've been operating with the new Calgon UV system. Been in compliance since the new system's been installed, even with the being downflow. So the new system has been what it's supposed to.
Thank you, Director White. Director Kinzel?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. For April, we had 1,587 people come through our doors. We checked out 2,073 items, 39 invitations. We listed 8 children's programs, 14 programs. On Wednesday, April 26th, we broke a record for our preschool story time attendance with 39 children and 22 adults attending at one preschool story time. We'd like to thank everyone who attended our Friends of the Library book sale and for anyone who donated items, helped us set up, and came and purchased the items there. So it was a success. We have a mural being painted in our young adult area by a young lady. Her name is Cindy Sabara. She painted a similar mural in the Denison Public Library as well as the Denison Fire Department. And it is amazing watching this. I'm outside invite everybody just to come by and watch the mural go up. It will be finished in about 5 weeks, and we'll do an unveiling for that. So it's really something else. And we're very proud that our library will have something in this property. So please come by and take a look. well. The library will be closed on Monday for Remembrance of Memorial Day. The library board will be hosting an appreciation dinner for the Friends of the Library Sunday, June 4th, from 4 to 6 p.m. Let's see, library staff and 2 team volunteers traveled to the Garrison Crisis Center in Sherman on April 12th for a literacy outreach. 24 children participated in a craft, story time, milking, disease, and received a free book.
Thank you. Engineers, McManus and Johnson.
We processed the final walkthrough for the last ER Holdings section of Georgetown. They're in the process of putting up the final screening wall. Expect them to get preliminary permits on the first couple lots in the next couple weeks. Part of the extension of the screening wall will be the Stone Hollow extension down Kelly Road also. And Palladium is continuing. You see shingles and it's proceeding on, and then we've been working with the school district on the new school site in the past Saturday.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Presently, they're building a complete brick wall down Kelly Lane, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why did they not have to go the other direction on Kelly Lane?
That's a good question.
Good question. Okay.
That was part of the original agreement with the developer back in 2003 or 4, and it was expected to be done, but it wasn't.
It's not visible. Okay.
We tried to negotiate something that had been successful. The original PD, it only states Village Parkway. It doesn't state Kelly. So for that wall to be going in on the current extension of Kelly is, this is not a big deal.
Okay. All right. City manager.
Mayor and Council, with the passing of the bond for the school district, the VAISD is having a naming the elementary program, so if you get an opportunity, weigh in with your 2 cents. In May, so far, we've received 11 home permits for Stone Hollow, so we're off and running just like last month. And the 17th is the last day to swear in the new council, and I have a communication from Ms. Kroll, and she will be in town this Thursday through Monday noon, and then she'll be on vacation from the 16th and 18th. So she needs to be sworn in, just like everybody else, before the 17th. So we'll need to get with legal as far as how that occurs and when y'all can schedule it. That's what I have, sir.
Thanks. As far as my closing comments, I want to thank everyone who volunteered for spots on this city council and was willing to stand for election. And I want to thank everyone who gave careful consideration in their voting. And I want to say I appreciate so much being able to work with Russell Moore these last few years on council, and with Mr. Billy Clay. And I welcome the new members of our council. So thank you very much, all of you.
I just got one announcement here. The Alstyne Chamber of Commerce opens its 2017 East End Park season on Tuesday, May 23rd. Plant brings platinum gold record award winning songwriter Tony Landon to downtown's multi-field park. So everybody come out and listen to Film Gardens in Medicine, which is the new chamber members co-sponsoring first music in the park. And let's see, Whistle Stop Cafe will offer special picnic style menu. It's wait staff on hand to take orders. The patrons wish they could bring their own ice chests and drinks, but without any alcoholic beverages since it's a city park. So that's upcoming Delaware County, May 23rd.
I just want to echo Mayor Cooper's sentiment and the thankfulness I have for the fellow council members who have been going on to council and looking forward to the new council members.
Thanks, everybody. And so at this time, I believe we are ready to recess the regular council meeting and move into an executive session. And I will read the following. In accordance with Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code, Open Meetings Law, in parentheses, the City Council may meet in a closed executive session pursuant to applicable laws. Item number 14, all items below for executive session. Pursuant to the following designated sections of Texas Government Code annotated, subchapter 551, the council will enter into executive session to discuss the following items. Section 551.071, in parentheses, consultation with attorney, regarding small I, in parentheses, dilapidated structures, and two small i's, in parentheses, sale and or purchase of property, and three small i's, in parentheses, Economic Development Corporation and Community Development Corporation board appointments, meeting attendance and procedures, bylaws, and state law requirements. And so the time is 7:53, and so we are going to recess from the regular session and move into executive session, I estimate at 8 o'clock p.m. This is, I don't know when we'll come out. This may be lengthy, and I'm not sure whether there will be any action after the executive session. So, we're ready. And thank you all. We adjourned from our executive session. As a result of our executive session, I think we have no actions, no votes to be taken, unless anyone wants to adjourn.
So moved.
All right. Moved, and we have a second, Mr. Blake. And so the time is now 9:28 p.m. and we are adjourned.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.